Hey everyone, it's Kong, and here's the 10th issue of Langrisser Lookout. This is a bi-weekly series where I go over some noteworthy game news and then follow it up with a brief update on my own account progress. So, as I hinted would be the case in the last issue of the Lookout, this is the one where we got all the second anniversary updates from China, so let's start with the community news roundup. Obviously, the first major thing we're going to look at is some more of the leaks and announced information from the second anniversary update coming to China. For global servers, most of this stuff will start trickling into the game in January 2021. The first really interesting piece of news is this ability to upgrade existing heroes to a new SP tier of rarity. These upgrades take the form of basically a new class, and they're going to be coming out at a slower pace than some of the other new content like 3-cost skills and unique gear. So maybe one per month, or maybe even one every couple of months. These upgrades are fairly expensive. You need a unique heart material for each character, and you get these in different ways. So Elwyn, for example, has a kind of fake side macho lotto where you basically need to spend crystals gambling for his heart material. I think Freya's comes from an event, so it's a little bit more assured. You also need a bunch of other stuff as well to make these upgrades, including 2 runestones, the character's unique equipment fully upgraded, and 200 Secret Realm challenge points or controller points, at least for the characters that have been announced so far. And then you need to meet some challenging requirements, such as working through missions that you may or may not have already completed. So as I mentioned, these SP upgrades basically function like a new class, and as such they have access to new troops and new skills. And the first SP characters are Elwyn and Freya. Now, the biggest difference with these SP versions is that they actually have their own unique talent as well, and this talent can only be used in this SP class. So when Elwyn and Freya are in their SP class, they don't actually have their old original talent, they have these new talents. Freya's new talent basically gives her some damage reduction and of course even more fixed damage. Elwyn's new talent boosts his attack and defense when he's initiating the attack. If there are no allies within 2 spaces, Elwyn can't be killed in one hit, so in other words he gets a once per battle revive. He also heals 20% of his HP per block traveled before combat, and if he moves 4 blocks before combat, he gets to attack before the enemy. Bananas. Bananas. One nice thing is that non-SSR characters will actually get SSR stat lines when they're in their SP class, so Freya could become a viable SSR level tank. Just a final kind of note about Bananas Elwyn. His new troop is unicorns, which are awesome. And one of the new skills that he has is basically like a chivalry type skill that actually lets him move 4 squares before combat if he's not using mixed troops, so in other words, unicorns. What that all means is that he can have unicorns use this new skill, move 4 tiles before attacking, and of course that 4 tiles means he's going to recover like 80% of his hit points and attack before the enemy. And the other part of this new juiced up chivalry skill means it has a 100% chance of proccing his unique weapon, so he can use a skill and it instantly refreshes the cooldown of that skill. Bananas. Okay, let's move on from Elwyn. Actually, one more thing to say about Elwyn. 2 of the new characters that are coming out in January are Rosenseal and Clotaire, who are both Empire. Rosenseal carries a new Empire faction buff. And she also has an interesting kit that kind of nullifies or at least mitigates AoE debuff teams. So she could kind of help single target comps come back into fashion. And of course Elwyn, being a newly long-legged Empire single target striker, this could basically give him a way back into the Apex meta, for those who have Elwyn built or want to sink these resources into building him. I know some people out there are anti-Elwyns, so have fun, folks. Okay, moving on for real this time. We've also got some new troops. So we've got these holy guys who can revive once per fight if they have no debuffs. We also have these robo motorbike guys who ignore some terrain penalties, illustrial style. We have these Assassin's Creed dudes and some pirate ladies. We've also got these Renata wannabe dragon ladies, werewolves, classic, some wolf riders, some Spartan lance dudes, and some Viking dudes. So we'll obviously get more information about what these troops do in the coming weeks and months. Really, I guess in the coming days, because they'll find their way into the Chinese version of the game, so yeah. Of course, a major update wouldn't be a major update without some new 3-cost skills and some new unique gear. So the new 3C skills that we're getting are for Zerida, Egbert, and Brenda. Zerida's is pretty predictable. It's essentially a combination of Alhazard Bloodthirster that then turns into Killing Blow when you use it. So this potentially frees up a skill slot for you. Brenda's is like a beefed up chivalry that lets her move through enemies like Ares, and it gives her a talent stack as well when you use it. Now, this actually also has a passive component that makes AoE damage give her talent stacks as well, which is pretty nice. If you'll recall, this gives her an extra turn once she has 3 stacks. That's at 6 star. As far as 3C design goes, those two are fairly run-of-the-mill, but Egbert's I find a bit more interesting just because it's a little bit more unique and really functional. So to start with, it makes him immune to fixed damage. It also deals a little jolt of damage to Egbert, which can conveniently trigger the effects of his unique equipment, and that increases the range and span of his skills. The 3C also reduces cooldowns for any skills that he uses in the next 2 turns, and summons an Egbert clone that has Teleport and Meteor, and a spell called Unstable Illusion, which to me sounds like it's probably a self-destruct or something like that. So the only kind of downside to a 3C like this is, obviously it reduces the number of slots that you can use on those other skills that are then being buffed. And then there's kind of the problem that exists with Egbert anyway, that his int is kind of low and his other skills aren't super powerful. So I think probably with him having a 3C skill now and a piece of unique equipment, the very last avenue that he has for improvement is a possible SP class. And that might be something that brings some new skills, and obviously the SSR stat line will really help him out. But we have no idea when Egbert's SP class will be coming. It could be a long time, if ever. Now, for the new unique gear, we're getting a helm for Chris and a robe for Bozel. Bozel's is fairly simple, but also effective. It basically inflicts an additional debuff whenever you deal damage, so it's very Bozel-y. And Chris's helm grants an extra talent buff to every buffed ally if Chris deals damage this turn. It also allows her to act again if she kills a demon-type unit. So continuing along this theme of new stuff, there's also going to be a new equipment banner. So for the new equipment, we're getting a new dagger that ignores 20% of the enemy's defense if you have more skill than them. I'm going to leave it to someone who maths to determine if this 20% of ignored defense makes up for the lack of attack moving from a bow to a dagger. Although I guess if someone like Omega uses Uller's bow anyway that has less attack than other bows, then maybe the jump to this dagger, for the benefits it provides, isn't really that bad. It definitely seems like the skill component, or the skill requirement, is a nod to Omega at least. There's also a new helm that has a 50% chance of inflicting the hated cannot be healed debuff on a nearby enemy. And I think this is a helm that can be equipped by flyers, so that could be something that you could put on someone like Ares, to have him fly in and do his little AoE burst, and then one of those enemies that he vacuums around himself will then get this debuff. We're also getting a new robe that basically increases healing effects by 10%, so that'll probably be one of the more common new items from this banner. And we're also getting a new accessory that comes with flat attack and defense. It gives 5% to all stats, like some of those nice overlordy and swordsmithy accessories. And the effect of this one is that it makes you immune to heal reversal and curse of wounding. So this accessory could be the new best in slot for someone like Yusuke, who doesn't want to have his heals screwed around with, and it also gives him some balance of attack and bulk. There will also be some new goodies like skins, summer skins for Rachel, Knight of Mystery, and Liffany, and some shop packs that Global will probably never get, so I'm going to leave them for now, and we can come address them later if it turns out, by some miracle, that they're going to leave the Asian regions. And speaking of salt, let's move on over to the PvP news. So 3 big pieces of news on the PvP front, actually. A couple of the community-organized tournaments have concluded. Starting with the Summit der Benchgrisser, B-Guy emerged victorious over Fan-Ha to become the first official champion of this community-run R and SR only tournament, so congrats B-Guy. The Summit der Langrisser Season 3 also concluded, and in this one, Desu Life defeated the legend himself to become the new Summit champion, so congrats Desu Life, and congrats to everyone who participated in both of these super fun tournaments. And also, big thank you to all the people who put all the hard work in to organize these tournaments. It's really great to see this kind of community effort, and I really hope to see it continue, because this is really the kind of thing that keeps a game like this going. In official Apex Arena news, the 4th regular season just concluded last night, so your ranks are final and the playoffs are set. For most of us, this is the start of a short break before the next season begins in a few weeks, but for the talented few, things are about to get serious. So best of luck to all competitors in the playoffs. Everyone else, keep your eyes peeled for the opportunity to start gambling on these playoff matches and maybe make some big gold. Okay, so that's it for the news, so let's move on to the Kong news for August 17th. And that was a lot of info already, so I'm going to kind of speed run this Kong update. I'll start with a very tiny summoning update. Tiny because the 2 banners that we had in the last couple weeks are the Aka Amelia banner and the Listel Lambda and Brenda banner. Now, both of these banners I've basically been hoarding through, but because I can't resist, I did toss 10 summons at each of them just to see if I get lucky. My philosophy with these is always, if I can get an SSR pull in my first 10 batch, then that's basically a free character. And if not, then it's a little bit of pity that I can carry towards the banner that I'm actually saving for. So I tossed 10 summons at Aka and Amelia, and I didn't get lucky, so I carried that forward. And then I tossed another 10 summons at Listel, Lambda, and Brenda to see if I'd get lucky there, and I didn't. So I'm sitting on 20 summons worth of pity going into this week's banner of Bozel, Liana, and Luna, and I'm going to do the same thing this week too. Obviously, these very eventful summoning sessions saw my lifetime summoning rate drop to 1.88%, which isn't terrible, it's a little bit less than average. On the Awakening front, I unlocked Wheeler's 3-cost skill, High Stakes, which is super nice. My Wheeler is still only 4 stars, so he's not super OP yet, but I did use him in the Forbidden Battlegrounds, and I found him fairly helpful there for the Yales challenge. Okay, I'm going to go right ahead and jump into the equipment update. I actually did get some good luck on the equipment front. I got my first Flower Boon bonnet, which means I now have all the helmets in the game, not including the uniques. So that's pretty sweet. I went all this time without getting that, and now I have it out of the way. The collector in me is happy. I also got my second Jormungandr's Eye, which I do have a use for, so that is happy. And I also got my 6th King's Crown. Can never have too many King's Crowns, so I am eventually going to build that one up. Continuing to scroll, I got my second Blood Pact from Timeless Trials this week, so I've got my storyline one and then another one, I don't know, as a backup. I don't know what I'm going to use these for, to be honest. And finally, just to close things out on an extremely positive note, to make everyone love and adore me, as they always do, I'm so sorry, but I got my 7th Ragnarok. I believe I got it from a dragon. It's embarrassing to look at this because I've only built one. I've just been swapping it around between characters. The fact of the matter is I don't use a lot of flyers and I don't know, the type of characters who can use this. But I'm not going to merge them just out of principle, because I know that people are really desperate for that, so I'm going to give Ragnarok the respect it deserves. I know how it feels to be missing a piece of really key equipment like that. I still don't have any extreme magic bows. So moving on to Gates. The winner of the 4th Gates of Folly community poll was Wheeler in a fairly tight race with Licorice. The vote was 38% to 34%, so people like a good follow-through, I guess. The 5th Gates of Folly community poll is now live, and the poll is going to be active all day Monday until the in-game server reset, and then once that reset happens, that's when I'll start farming up whoever wins the vote, all the way up to the next issue of the Lookout in 2 weeks. So Wheeler's going to be in there again, hoping that you'll let me get him up to 5-star. The only other kind of real update, the other characters I've been farming up, I've got Ares, who's fairly close to 6-star now. Actually, he'll be turning 6-star during this cycle. And I was also working Jugler up to 100 out of 150, and I stopped him there intentionally because he has a banner coming up. Well, coming up in October, with Landius and Yulia. And my Landius and Yulia are both 6 stars already, so I have a fairly decent chance of just summoning Jugler to top him up to 6 stars, which saves me, basically 2 weeks of sharding someone else. So we're not really sure who that will be yet. But I mean, my Jugler's decent enough that going to summoning him in October only takes us a bit of the way through Season 5 laddering, so he'll do the trick for me at least up until that point, so I'm not too worried about waiting. And actually, for my training and my bonds, I've just been continuing to chip away a little bit here and there where needed, so I don't really need to go into great detail here. You can see I've just been working on my defensive bonds, or my defensive training a little bit for flyers and aquatics, and then some individual troops in the other areas. So I think I'm just going to call it there. So yeah, that's going to be it for the Kong update, and that's going to be it for this issue of the Langrisser Lookout. A little bit heavy on anniversary news, but that's frankly the more interesting and more important part of the last couple weeks in the news anyway. So thanks for watching, and thanks for all your feedback and advice in the comments as always. Stay tuned for the next issue of Should You Summon later this week. Make sure you go vote in the Gates of Folly to pick who I'm going to shard for my 3rd slot of Gates of Fate, and then I'll catch you in the next Langrisser Lookout.